Ian, we got a Patreon, don't we?
We do. Patreon.com/CU podcast. You go, you pay a little, I write. You get a full video podcast. We do hangouts.
We do an exclusive podcast, Pat versus the field mouse this week.
That's right. You get exclusive
Ian
podcast
Ian
tidbits.
talks about bats.
Talk a little bit about bats.
And a Patreon poll.
Patreon poll.
In second place, are sealed game collectors being mistreated? 15%. I don't know why you're not voting by that. I nudged you to vote for that one last week. And in first place, 85%. I'm like a dictator. What do you miss about gaming in the past? And what are you glad is gone from gaming in the past?
You know what I don't miss about gaming in the past? I'll tell you what I don't miss about gaming in the past.
Eyes widen.
No, I don't miss password save systems. Password save systems were a fucking nightmare. And I feel like this is something that everyone knows about, but hey, I'm almost 40 and plenty of people are younger than me. If you're younger and you don't know about password save systems, before there were battery saves or just, hard drives and things like that in systems, we saved using passwords. So what you would do in a game is you'd play a game like, say, a really bad example is holy fuck River City. A good example of a bad one is River City Ransom. Say you're playing a game like River City Ransom where there's all sorts of stats and stuff that you can get and progress to save. And you're like, well, I'm done playing the game for the day. You go and you get a password, but you have to write it down. And it was rarely a small password. With a game like, say, Adventures of Lolo, it was pretty easy. It was just a four-letter password for each stage. It's just each stage. There's nothing that carries over from stage to stage. Just tells you where you're restarting.
Sure. They'll keep track of items or anything.
But the more RPG elements get entered into a game, and the more there is to keep track of, the more items there are to find, and the more things carry over, you end up with games like River City Ransom, where you're putting in an entire page.
That's a weird one because that came out like 89. Or 90 in the US. They should have had that battery.
And I think it was battery save actually, I think it was a disk system game in Japan.
Okay.
But it's probably why, because it wasn't a battery save.
Like with Kid Icarus and Metroid.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, yeah. And the thing is, most of the time they were like, I would say maybe 8 times 4 digits, 8 digits times maybe 4 spaces. Like that was like Metroid and Kid Icarus had similar ones. So it wasn't like impossible to deal with, but there would always be a point in time, no matter how many times you checked that password when you wrote it down. There would always come a point in time, usually in the last third to quarter of the game, where you'd go and put that password in, and the password just wouldn't register.
So that's bad, Ian. That's really bad.
That's bad.
You know what's also bad? When you have a battery save and it deletes anyway.
Yes.
Because that's like the false sense of security when you have your full baseball stars roster and over at Billy's and he gets mad or something and just hits the power button without holding reset. And you can forget to hit reset sometimes when you're playing like that or Legend of Zelda, and it gets wiped. The RAM gets wiped.
Yep.
And you feel like you want to fucking kill someone. When you put like a month into building your baseball stars franchise and having all your creative players and your season and everything, it's gone. And it ain't coming back.
I can't remember which game it was. It might have been Zelda 1, because I watched my dad beat Zelda 1, but maybe my mom's game got deleted on that. I still have my mom's save game on a Dragon Warrior cartridge. Maybe a Zelda 2 game got wiped. But yeah, that was always awful. Like the fact that we have solid, like reliable spaces for our save games now on actual hard drives.
Real hard drives, flash drives, yes.
And that's honestly a thing that's only been around since like
20 years.
Excuse me. I mean, not even like 15. Yeah, I mean,
PS2 had the hard drive.
PS2 did for like the online game, but PS2 still used memory cards. It was Generation 7. It was PS3, 360, and Wii where things really started to get saved to an actual hard drive instead of a memory card.
Were the memory cards on PS1 and PS2, were they pretty reliable though?
PS1 and the third-party ones weren't. You'll always hear about people. And the PS2 ones were pretty reliable, but I've had corrupt ones.
We'll stay in this track though. What I don't miss is when we didn't have the ability to save a game. That was miserable. And I don't think, whenever we brought this up before, I don't think we ever brought that up, how miserable it was to be forced to play a game to completion.
Yeah.
Like that's
I mean, as a kid, it was fun, but as an adult, I realized that's not a fun way to play games.
It's miserable. Even as a kid, it wasn't fun. Because you're locked into an afternoon, instead of playing wiffle ball, I got to try to beat Ninja Gaiden. I can't stop.
But you've got to, and first you've got to, dedicate another half an hour to get back to that last level. And then you got to try that. Yeah, it's annoying. Obviously with certain games like shooters or whatever, repetition is part of the game. It's how you learn the game. It's how you get better at it. But with like platformers and stuff like that, especially some of the longer ones, man, I don't need to go through all those levels again.
Plus, sometimes you're in the zone. Sometimes you're playing the best you ever played right then.
Yeah.
You're not going to, like, sometimes I remember I played Ninja Gaiden as a kid. Sometimes, yeah, I would fly through it, get to the last stage and have problems. But other times I'd be like, oh my God, this isn't my day. So like then you got to, there's a different, I think, mentality that was introduced for games whenever you want to say that when just about every game started to have, we'll just say saves, you want, or most of them want to say like late 90s or whatever, when you had most, we're talking about console obviously versus PC, where you don't feel like you're trapped anymore playing a game. So like you're trapped with that one game.
Yeah.
Like you are forced to, your experience is that one game and that's it. You're playing that game for the day. That's your game.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your one game for today. Before you do homework, you can't do other games. One game. And that's something that's now totally gone. We have now freedom to be like, all right, save points every console or whatever. You can suspend state on your Switch. You can just put in sleep mode, come back to it. I mean, that's a huge win for us. I ain't nostalgic about that. I'm nostalgic about a lot of stuff. I don't miss that stuff.
And then real quick, just two things that I do miss. Well, one, they're kind of hand in hand. I miss being able to just jump into a game. I miss pressing start and playing. I liked story in my games, don't get me wrong, but I think pacing of modern games, especially modern games, I think is very slow. I think games take a long time to get going. I think there's even, certain platformers. I think there's something to be said about being able to press start and just jump into a game.
Have an intro level that sort of
I hate the modern 2-hour long tutorial. I don't want that.
That's basically what the new ActRaiser was. I'm playing this game. I'm like, wow, this is taking a long time to teach me the game. And you're repeating stuff over and over again. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I hate that. I hate the modern tutorial. I'm glad it's there if people want it, because some people, that's how they learn. They want to be shown, and I get that. But that's not me, which leads me to my next thing. And I've said this before when this question has come up similarly. I miss, more than anything, instruction manuals. I miss having an instruction manual.
Where's my Playdate reference?
From the, you mean Evercade?
Yeah.
From the day I started playing video games until the day they stopped putting manuals in the boxes, I would buy a game and go through the manual. With RPGs, I would buy the game and keep the manual near me so I could reference things like systems and things like that as I'm playing. I hate having to do it all through in-game menus. I don't like in-game help menus. It's not as easy to find something as it is to just pick up a book and flip through it. And I hate reading huge, long chunks of text on a screen. I want to read it on paper. I know they cost money to print, but
it's not that much.
But it was far easier to just have a manual. That's the one thing that I think people always gloss over when they talk about reading something digitally is you can't just flip. The inability to flip and find something.
That's why books have survived.
Yes.
The flipping and carrying around, you can't do that easily with the tablet, and you can't go back to bookmark stuff. You can't. And I
have an e-reader, and I like reading normal books on it, but like
reference,
but for something like reference, it's impossible. I tried reading like some Dungeons and Dragons shit on there, and I deleted it off my fucking reader and just picked my book back up because it's impossible.
It's a great point about manuals. And it's also another thing that manuals provides. It provides an entertainment companion outside of the game.
Yeah.
It's another form of enjoying the game when you're not playing the game. It gives you more background. You can take it with you. People would take them to school and read them or show them to their friends.
Little introductory story, character bios.
It's another level of enjoyment that wasn't baked in the game, but actually enhanced the experience more so than a modern tutorial or a story. It's a different piece of art form, the writing in the manual, the artwork. It's totally different. I think that's been lost, just that alone.
Some manuals used to show you some of the enemies you'd see.
And the posters.
And you'd get excited to be like, I want to see this guy, or they'd tell you a little bit about the levels that are coming up. Manuals were great.
I spent an hour reading that Legend of Zelda poster pack in.
Sure.
The story, all the items explained, that was an experience in of itself, just that. That's gone. The one thing we always bring up is that we lost more of a When you're more of your kid, but probably because there was less console games coming out in the late 80s, because it was mostly NES for people. Everyone was playing the same thing for the most part. Like, you had kids that get the weird games or other thing, but for the most part, everyone was playing this new game was coming out, or at least talking about it. Everyone was talking about Bayou Billy when it came out, for example. It was a Nintendo Power.
Everyone played Contra. Everyone played Rampage.
Yeah.
Everyone played Mario 3.
There was a communal experience. The other thing, this goes back to what Frank Cifaldi said, Not For Resale. When you had less choice back then, it forced you to try things you wouldn't normally do. He said it made you a more interesting person. That's an interesting quote that he said. So, but yes, when you're forced to play what was at your friend's house, when he had Star Voyager, not the best example, but you put it in and you played it and you tinkered around with it.
Well, it's true. If I was left to my own device as a kid, I never would have picked up a fucking football game. I hate them, but I thought I hated them. But that's how I learned to love Tecmo. That's how I learned to enjoy fishing games, was by playing what was around.
The games were super stupid expensive back then when you account for inflation too. So like, it's not like, oh, we don't like these 6 games. Well, I ain't getting another game for 5 months, so we got to play these games. That's it. Obviously, you can rent them out, but I mean, not everyone had those easy options. You over your friend Joey's house, you just play some street hockey or street tennis. What do you got, Joey? Oh, you got what was the game he had that was kind of weird? Hell, he had Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Only kid I knew that had it. We played it because it was one of the options. Sure, it was there. Why did you have that game, Joey? Well, there's like 3 kids in the house. You had to learn how to count and stuff. I'll never forget that he had Donkey Kong Jr. Math. I knew no other kid that had that game. Which must have means he had the NES early. He must have gotten like 86. He must have had it. Anyway, so yeah, that's some of the stuff that we talk about. The manual is always a good one. And it's not just, nostalgia, I think, for the manual. It's like you're losing an art form.
You lose an art form, but you also just you're losing the most practical, easy way to deliver information quickly to someone who's playing a game. A manual on their lap. Instead of having to press start, go into the online help menu.
Have some stupid mascot show up and tell you how to get through. It's like, oh my God, okay. Let me just read it and I'll be good. Let's move on at my own pace. Good?
Good.